Hi, everyone. This is Jillian with Court Junkie. Court Junkie is a true crime podcast that covers court cases and criminal trials using audio clips and interviews with people close to the cases. Court Junkie is available on Apple Podcasts and podcastone.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 306 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
I am doing very well. I'm excited about all the episodes that we have out this week. We just dropped a Patreon episode about Franklin Alex, a guy who went on a 6-month murder, rape, and robbery spree down in Texas. That's a good one.
It is a good one.
We also have a brand new episode out right now on TCAT where we're talking about Rebecca O'Donnell, who murdered former Arkansas State Senator Linda Collins. She was her very good friend and former campaign worker. And I don't want to give anything away, but the reasons behind this murder just floor me.
It really does.
And so I hope everybody will check that one out. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Caitlin.
Hey, Caitlin.
Ruth K.
What's going on, Ruth?
Julie Dunson.
Hey, Julie.
Tim Turkett.
What's going on, Tim?
Betty June Spath.
Well, thank you, Betty.
Brenda Doyle.
There's Brenda.
Anthony Shub.
Hey, Shroob.
Jamie Elborn.
What's going on, Elborn?
Amanda Warner.
Hey, Amanda.
Ashley Woods.
Well, appreciate that, Ashley.
Brandy Brody.
Hey, Brody.
Susan Naring.
Oh, I like that, Naring.
Kiera Quanda Mateo.
Ooh, Quando Matero.
And I'm just having a lot of fun saying that name.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Caitlin Rose.
Hey, Caitlin.
Chris Summers.
Appreciate that, Summers.
Blackwater Paul.
What's going on, Blackwater?
Sherry.
Hey, Sherry.
Holly Tapley.
There's Holly.
Deborah Manley.
Well, appreciate that, Deborah.
Rachel Deely.
What's going on, Rachel?
Don McBride jumped out at her highest level.
Well, you're awesome, Don.
Hey Den.
What's up, Den?
Melissa Snyder.
There's Snyder.
And last but not least, Melissa Hammond.
There's Melissa.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Tim Marsh.
Tim, you're awesome.
Yeah, we appreciate all the new support, the continued support. We had a great PayPal donation from Maria Lukacs.
Hey, thanks, Maria.
Yeah, so we appreciate that as well. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We're talking about the disappearance of Joshua Guimond. And, you know, Joshua's last name and the pronunciation of it was really tough. We did a lot of searching.
Did.
And the problem is we've heard it said about 5 or 6 different ways. Some people pronounced it with the D on the end. Some people pronounced it totally different.
Right.
But the way we heard it the most was Guimond. And I think that's more of the French way to say it. So we're going with that because I believe that is the most correct. I'll say it that way. But on November 9th, 2002, 20-year-old Joshua Guimond left a college party and was never seen again. At first, the police thought he might have fallen into a lake on campus and drowned. But when Josh wasn't found in the lake, investigators started to suspect foul play. According to NPR News, Joshua Guimond was born on June 18th, 1982. His father, Brian, described him as a good all-around kid. Josh was the kind of person who would help anyone, and he didn't have any enemies. Josh graduated from high school in 2000. He was the valedictorian of his class and was voted most likely to succeed.
Just like you.
Nowhere near like me. I wasn't the valedictorian, and I certainly wasn't voted most likely to succeed. Now, I did help a lot of people. I don't know if you could say I would help anyone, because that is a wide pool.
That is a very wide pool.
A big pool of people. but I don't think I had a lot of enemies. At the time of his disappearance, Josh was a junior political science major at St. John's University in Collegeville, Minnesota, a men's college. Josh wanted to go to law school, start his career as a lawyer, and then become a politician. His goal was to be the president of the United States.
It's a big goal to have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going to set one, go as high as you can. If you want to be a politician in the United States, there really is no higher goal.
Yeah.
You're not limiting yourself at state rep, senator, governor. You're going right for the top.
Going for the gusto. It is interesting to realize that a lot of the politicians at that federal level, almost majority of them have some type of law degree.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Political science, law. I do think they kind of go hand in hand in some ways. Also, it just helps to be an attorney with that knowledge.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
If you're a person that talks in public a lot, not a bad thing to know what you should and should not say.
And how to say it.
Legally.
Right.
What would get you in trouble and what would be okay. Josh had been dating a girl named Katie Benson since high school. Katie was a student at the College of St. Benedict, a women's college. The schools are a joint college located just 6 miles apart. Josh and Katie continued dating after high school, but they broke up during his junior year. It had only been a couple of months since the breakup when Josh went missing. According to the St. Cloud Times, Josh disappeared on the night of November 9th, 2002. His friends Alex Judge and Nate Slinkard were with Josh on the day he disappeared. Josh was working on a research paper during the day. Josh's friend Nick Hajdukovic told Unsolved Mysteries that they went to brunch together. Katie invited them to hang out with her and her roommates that night, but Josh had been invited by some different friends to play poker at an on-campus apartment. Nick said that he saw Josh around 6:30 to 7 p.m. Josh and a friend were at their apartment. Nick told Josh he was going to Katie's. Josh told him to have fun, and that was the last time he saw his friend. And these interactions always strike a chord with me. When you think about these unsolved cases that we do, especially when you're talking about a disappearance case, there are often one or more individuals who talk about their last conversation with this individual. And I often think about it in the context that, it's such a big deal. Not in the moment.
No.
It's not a big deal at all.
But later.
But later on, that conversation would be etched in your mind. We often talk about how would you remember something 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago that happened that long ago. And this is how it would happen, because something really big happened in connection with that conversation.
Just kind of stamps it in your mind.
Yeah, it etches it there forever. Josh lived in a dorm called St. Mar House. The party was at the Metancourt Apartments, just a short walk away from Josh's dorm. Between Metancourt and St. Mar is Stump Lake, a small lake with a bridge pathway. Alex Judge told the St. Cloud Times that he was at Josh's apartment before they left to go to their friend Nate Slinkard's apartment around 11:30 p.m. Alex added that Josh probably had about 10 beers over a period of 6 hours, which he said wasn't too much for him. Now, you can analyze that statement and that phrase, too much. 10 beers for me right now is way too much. You would be dragging me up the stairs.
If you drank them in a couple hours or over 6 hours?
Either way.
Yeah, too much.
Either way, it's too much. But if you go back to 19, 20-year-old Fergie,
right,
10 beers is getting started for the party.
Yeah, just a dent in the...
Yeah, I'm not bragging about it because I'm not happy with some of the choices that I made back then.
Sure.
But I'm telling the truth.
You had a tolerance for it back then.
Yes, because I was, drinking quite a bit.
Yeah.
Mostly on the weekends, but I was drinking quite a bit and partying and all of that.
We know Frank the Tank.
I mean, I know people that drink a case of beer a day.
Oh, yeah.
Get up the next morning, go to work.
No big deal.
And it's no big deal. And I have no idea how they do it. The police spoke with Josh's friends and roommates to establish a timeline of the night. Josh and his friends were in his apartment at 11 p.m. They left to go to the party, which was about 5 minutes away. Josh used his key card to access his apartment at 11:06 p.m. So police think he went back into the apartment to get more beer. This was the last time Josh entered the apartment. He didn't have his wallet, glasses, or car keys with him when he went to the party. All of this was according to Fox 9. There were about 10 to 12 people at this poker party. Some of the students knew Josh, but others didn't. Josh got there between 11:30 and 12. He had some drinks and played cards. People said that he was in a good mood and, he was acting normal. He was acting like himself. Now, some people thought he was drunk, but others thought he was still able to walk, talk, and keep control of himself. Josh left the party just before midnight on November 9th. People at the party later reported that Josh got up and he left without saying anything. Josh's friends just thought that he left briefly to use the bathroom, but he never came back. This was said to have been unusual behavior for him to leave without saying goodbye to anyone. When Josh didn't come back, his friends assumed that he had walked back to his dorm.
I had friends like that. I've been at parties when I was younger where you have a good friend and all of a sudden they get up and you think exactly that. They went to go use the bathroom and then you find out they left. Mm-hmm. And you're like,
why didn't you say goodbye?
Well, yeah, and they just decided they wanted to leave. Didn't want to tell anybody. I don't know how you respond to them. It's their choice.
But here's the question I have for you. When that would happen back in the day, because I'm assuming you're not talking about last Thursday, would you think, something must be really wrong? Or would you just naturally assume that, they didn't come back, they must have went home, no big deal?
Exactly what I would think.
Yeah.
No big deal.
And I think most people would. Exactly how Josh's friends thought he had just walked back to his dorm. I mean, there's no reason to sound the alarm bells. I guess that's what I'm getting at, because at that point, you don't know anything's wrong.
Yeah, unless there was some type of drama before then that would lead you to think something's wrong, you're not.
Somebody threatened to kill somebody or threatened to kill Josh or something like that. But apparently none of that happened. Nick Hajdukovic left Katie Benson's apartment around 2 a.m. When he got back to their dorm, he saw that Josh wasn't in his room, but he thought he was still at the party. The next morning, Josh still hadn't come back. Now, Nick thought this was strange. He checked Josh's AOL Instant Messenger and saw that Josh's account had been inactive for 12 hours. He spoke to some of Josh's friends. They didn't know where he was. I remember the days of AOL Instant Messenger.
I bet you do.
I remember the days when AOL was the giant.
Oh, yeah. It was the thing.
I mean, if you wanted internet, that's where you got it from.
Yeah.
Almost everyone did. And then all of a sudden, they just kind of went away.
Just disappeared. Time Warner Bottom or something at one point. And
yeah, but then, then you had all the cable companies, the phone companies. Everybody got into internet.
You've got mail.
Yeah, it was fun back then because you didn't get a lot of mail. Now I've got 1,000 emails in my inbox by the time I wake up.
Good thing it doesn't say that now. You'd drive you crazy.
Yeah,
you got mail. You got mail.
Exactly.
You got mail.
It used to be a thing that you looked forward to because you knew it was coming from somebody that you probably wanted to hear from.
Yeah.
Now it's every company in the world somehow has my email address. Josh didn't show up for his mock trial team practice, which was very out of character for him. The dean of students called Lisa Cheney, Josh's mother, at 10:30 p.m. on November 10th. He told her that she needed to report Josh missing because his friends hadn't seen him since the night before. Josh's mom reported him missing later that same night, according to Stearns County Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Vic Weiss. The sheriff's office searched Josh's apartment, but it was really more of a walkthrough than a true search. According to Stearns County Sheriff Steve Soika, they were looking for signs of a struggle, criminal activity, maybe even a suicide note. Everything seemed normal, but Josh's wallet, keys, glasses, and contact case were still there, and his car was still in the parking lot.
So that should be somewhat alarming.
Yeah, I see why it would be. I also see why they were looking for what they were looking for, right? Signs of a struggle,
right?
A suicide note, something that would give them an indication that something bad had happened. Now, I see your point, which is it's not really normal for all of this stuff to still be sitting there when you haven't been home in quite a while. At some point, you're going to want something to eat. Now, he is on a college campus. Maybe he has a card where all he has to do is go to the cafeteria and he can get a meal.
True, or maybe he had some cash in his pocket. But
yes, we don't know that, but it's still strange. A tracking dog came to campus on the first night of the investigation. It tracked Josh's scent to the pathway between Metton Court and St. Mar House, but the trail stopped. Always fascinated when the tracking dogs come into play.
Oh, yeah.
The police found 2 student witnesses who possibly saw Josh between 12:15 and 12:30 a.m. They were walking towards Metton Court. When they got to the footbridge by Stump Lake, they saw a man in a hooded sweatshirt and blue jeans. His description matched Josh's. When they looked back, the young man was gone, and they said they didn't see any more people or cars. Law enforcement searched the campus. They brought in more dogs. According to Sheriff Soika, during the searches, a canine led investigators to the water by the bridge. And I think this is what led them to wonder if Josh had fallen into the water. The National Guard also searched the area around campus. The National Guard assisted because although the campus was small, St. John's College owned several hundred acres of land in what was described as a pretty rural area.
So they needed some additional help. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the campus itself is small, but if you're trying to search several hundred acres, that's going to take a lot of people.
It is.
Horse teams came in on November 12th. On the 13th, Josh's family and friends were allowed to help with the search. The FBI was also brought in because a few young people were missing around the same time as Josh, and we'll discuss this more later in the episode. The police sent in divers, they dragged the lake, they even used sonar technology to search the water. Now it was cold and winter was approaching, so investigators suspended the search in the water because they knew Josh's body wouldn't surface until the spring if he was in the lake.
Well, yeah, they had the ice on top of that, and yeah, it was going to be a while.
Josh's family brought in a bloodhound on December 29th. The bloodhound traced Josh's scent from Metton Court to Stump Lake, then to Josh's apartment, and then to St. John's Abbey. St. John's is a religious college with a monastery on campus. Some of the monks are professors.
So no lack of canines here.
No, we got
everybody.
Yeah,
right?
we got the family's got a canine. The authorities have canines. What I did find interesting was that the first canine kind of lost the trail.
Yeah.
But now this bloodhound was able to take it a little bit further. So I don't know what that means. Was this one better than the other one?
Maybe.
Or was he following a scent that wasn't Josh? It's hard to tell. I'm assuming, just like with people or anything, some of the dogs are going to be better than others.
I believe that to be true.
They can't all be exactly the same.
No. Some are just more skilled.
Yeah, maybe they're more well trained. Maybe they have a stronger sense of smell. I don't know.
And maybe the day the other canines came out to try to pick up on a scent, maybe the environment had a play in it too.
Yeah, maybe the conditions were different. Yeah. I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff that goes into it. Around the time Josh disappeared, news was coming out about sexual abuse at St. John's. Josh was angry about this. Brian Guimond told the police that he believed Josh was looking into sexual misconduct for a research paper. When the police searched Josh's computer, they saw research papers, but nothing about sexual abuse at the university. So, to me, I think you can kind of see where that line of reasoning is headed. Josh is looking into something that maybe somebody didn't want him looking into and did something to him.
Yeah, it led to maybe the reason why he has disappeared.
Yes. Brian requested that the search continue into areas of the Abbey that are restricted to the public, but they were denied access. St. John's contacted the sheriff's department and they gave them permission to search through the Abbey with the dog. The dog detected Josh's scent in the rear of the building, but there was no evidence that Josh was there. Josh's mother, Lisa, told Unsolved Mysteries, "I believe that if somebody did something to Joshua that had any connection to that campus whatsoever, we're never going to find him, ever. Not even a body, ever, because they're too secretive."
When you hear that from the mother, I mean, she truly believes this. Is that because of the misconduct that was going on?
The allegations
of misconduct?
Yeah, I think so. I think she's talking about it along those lines. The sheriff's office resumed searching in the spring. They dove in multiple bodies of water looking for Josh. Josh's father also searched the lakes in a kayak. The sheriff's office ultimately concluded that Josh was not in Stump Lake. The one thing that really jumps out here is the family's searching. I mean, they're getting their own canine. Josh's dad is out kayaking in the lake. I mean, they're
on his own.
On his own. They're not just waiting around for the police to give them information. They're doing stuff themselves. 20 years later, Josh Guimond has not been found. There are a few different theories about what happened to him. The initial theory we talked about was that Josh drowned in the lake on campus, but his body has never been found, despite a number of searches. And is it possible that they missed his body? Yeah, I'm sure it is. But when you talk about having divers and dragging the lake and things like that, there's a good chance, in my opinion, that they probably would have found him. Not for certain, but I think there's a good chance. But Josh's father, Brian, has said that he had to request 2 times to bring in a dive team to search the lake. He told the news outlet KARE11, Hour 1, the sheriff at the time said, "He's in the lake, end of story." I said, "What if you're wrong? You better start doing something else." Nope.
He's right. If you think he's in the lake, get out there and find him. Because if he's not, you need to go ahead and switch over to the next phase of the investigation.
Well, I get it. Having a theory that he fell in the lake and drowned. I understand that theory. He consumed quite a bit of alcohol. He was seen near the lake. That's where the theory comes from.
Right.
But we've talked about it time and time again. What is one of the worst things that can happen in an investigation? And that's getting tunnel vision and sticking with it too long to the exclusion of a bunch of other things that you could be checking out or checking on.
But you can see Josh's dad doesn't seem too happy with how things are not moving the way they should be.
Yeah, in 2017, Brian told NPR News that he was frustrated by how the case was handled. He believes Josh was taken against his will, and investigators were too focused on the theory that Josh fell into the lake. Brian did his own searches and even hired private detectives to search the lake. They didn't find anything. Now, we've mentioned it a little bit, but there were a few high-profile disappearances of young men around the same time that Josh went missing. Power up for springtime with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. Get nutritious, chef-prepared meals delivered straight to your door, leaving you time and energy to tackle everything on your to-do list. My wife and I have been eating Factor for over a year now. We love it. We normally get the Calorie Smart meals, which are around 550 calories or less, or the keto meals. But they also have vegan plus veggie and protein plus option on the menu each week. These are delicious, flavor-packed meals to help you live life to the fullest. First off, you can skip the trip to the grocery store and skip the chopping, prepping, and the cleaning up too. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy. Factor has helped us really cut back on takeout. So get Factor and enjoy clean eating without the hassle. They have 34 different options each week, so you can enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered right to your door, ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/TCAT50 and use code TCAT50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code TCAT50 at factormeals.com/TCAT50 to get 50% off your first box. It's the fall of 2017 in Rancho Tehama, California. A man and his wife are driving to a doctor's appointment when another car crashes into them, sending them flying off the road. Disoriented, they stumble out of the car, only to hear dozens of gunshots whizzing past them. This is just a chapter of a much larger nightmare unraveling in their small town. This Is Actually Happening presents a special limited series called Point Blank, shedding a light on the forgotten spree killings of Rancho Tehama, where a lone gunman devastated a small town, attacking 8 different locations in the span of only 25 minutes, overshadowed by the Las Vegas shooting that dominated the headlines just weeks earlier. This small community quickly faded from view and was left alone to pick up the pieces. The series follows 5 stories of people connected to the incident, from a father that drew the gunman away from the local school to the sister of the shooter. These are riveting stories that will stick with you long after you listen. And that's why we know that you'll love this podcast. These stories will keep you on the edge of your seat. Follow This Is Actually Happening wherever you listen to podcasts. You can listen ad-free on the Amazon Music or Wondery app. In the early hours of November 1st, 2002, 21-year-old Christopher Jenkins, a student at the University of Minnesota, went missing after leaving a Minneapolis bar. He was out celebrating Halloween. On November 6th, 22-year-old Michael Knoll, a student at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, disappeared after celebrating his birthday at a bar. According to ABC News, family members believe that the closeness of the disappearances was more than just coincidence. The young men went missing within 10 days and about 170 miles of each other. Jan and Steve Jenkins, Chris's parents, told ABC, there are too many similarities. Brilliant kids, high achievers, all about the same height and weight and the time frame. Josh's father, Brian, also believed the disappearances were related.
Oh, yeah, I can get that. You can see if the kids all looked the same circumstances, they were kind of doing the same thing at nighttime before they went missing.
Mm-hmm. All college students out drinking, celebrating.
Everything's kind of aligning together.
Well, I also think it's natural for people to want to make things fit. We see that with a lot of cases. We talked about in our Jack the Ripper episodes about how some people think, it's this person or that person.
Right.
Because they want it to fit.
Of course.
They want it to be H.H. Holmes, or some people want the Zodiac to be responsible for all these other unsolved cases as well, because they want it to all fit.
Yeah, fit in that box a little better.
The Minneapolis FBI sent the case information to the Behavioral Science Unit in Washington. The families told ABC that they believed the police would have responded faster if their kids were younger. But many police departments wait to investigate missing adults. And again, that's something you and I have talked about time and time again. Now, they used to wait to investigate missing kids.
Yeah, back in the 70s. We know that.
But we are talking about individuals here who are adults, right? 18 years of age or older. And so there is that kind of thought on the part of the police in many instances that these people can do what they want. I mean, they can leave and not tell anybody where they're going.
I mean, I took a lot of road trips at that age.
without telling anyone.
Just went on my own, or went with some friends. And
is that when you started touring as Rex West?
That was near that time. Yes. Because I had to make money to get back.
So I can understand why you wouldn't really want to tell people
exactly
all the details of your excursions.
It never will.
On February 27, 2003, Christopher Jenkins was found in the Mississippi River near downtown Minneapolis. On March 25th of that year, Michael Knowles' body was found in Half Moon Lake on the west side of Minneapolis. Someone saw his body protruding through the ice. Michael's wallet was found on his body, and his clothing matched the description of what he was wearing when he went missing. In 2006, the police first ruled Chris Jenkins's cause of death as a drowning, but the manner of death was unknown and thought to be an accident or suicide. Chris's blood alcohol level was above the legal limit. The police thought he fell into the river. Chris's parents hired a private investigator to look into the case because they thought he was killed. The police reopened the case after they received the tip. The police were speaking to someone who was in jail who had specific knowledge about Chris being thrown off a bridge. They also wanted to talk to another eyewitness who was not in custody. This tip led the police to change his cause of death from unexplained drowning to homicide. According to a 2018 SW News Media article, no charges have been filed in the case.
So you go from an individual that, similar to Joshua, people thought maybe they drank too much, he fell in the water because he was drunk, and we just have to wait till we find the body. Of course, they find the body, but then the story changes. It goes from, well, we thought maybe he was drunk and fell in the water, to now there's some foul play going on here.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting about it to me is that it didn't change with anything that they found regarding the body. It changed because of a tip.
Yeah.
And then, and they must have been able to corroborate some of that information to go as far as changing the cause of death from unexplained drowning to homicide. Now, I don't know why no charges have been filed. That just may be that they just haven't been able to gather the evidence that, a DA would want or believe is needed to actually win a case.
Yeah, sometimes it's just tough to get that type of evidence.
There is no evidence Josh fell into water. When the Stearns County Sheriff was asked about the lake theory, he told KARE 11, that theory, I think, can be put to rest. And that's interesting, that the sheriff would actually tell a news outlet that, that was the prevailing theory kind of all along.
Yeah.
And now he's saying, no, he doesn't believe it.
Well, they've searched the water multiple times, could not find Joshua's body. I think you have to shift.
Now, what this does is it leads into the theory that there was or is a serial killer murdering male college students across the country. This is called the smiley face killer theory. And this in and of itself is a very popular unsolved case.
It is.
Hundreds of young men across the country have drowned after a night of drinking, but a lot of people wonder if their deaths were not really accidents. One well-known supporter of this theory is St. Cloud State Criminal Justice Professor Lee Gilbertson, who, along with a retired detective, wrote a book titled Case Studies in Drowning Forensics. Gilbertson believes that a killer or killers drugged, abducted, and murdered college-aged men and then dumped their bodies in water. Local news outlet Fox 9 reported on this theory in 2006. Some of Gilbertson's grad students looked into an urban legend about a serial killer traveling on the I-95 corridor from Fargo to Detroit and murdering young men. Gilbertson believes there is more than one killer because the deaths have occurred across the U.S., and the killers sometimes leave behind smiley face graffiti in the general area. So obviously that's where the smiley face killer moniker comes from.
Right.
According to Oxygen, some retired law enforcement officials believe that the smiley face killer or killers is a nationwide network of killers.
Well, we have talked about the smiley face killers before on some of the other unsolved cases that we covered as potential theories.
Yeah, I mean, they come in a number of cases. I think anytime you have, a college-aged or middle-aged male who is murdered after a night of drinking,
right?
That theory kind of comes into play. But when you hear someone say nationwide network of killers, that's scary.
It's really scary.
It's scary enough when you have one person out there targeting people, they're unknown. But when you think it's a network of a whole bunch of people like-minded,
working together, doing these really bad things, killing people, okay, lock your doors, which you should be doing anyway. Yes.
According to Oxygen, since 1997, dozens of young men have died in accidental or undetermined drownings in 25 cities and 11 states across the U.S. Former New York Police Department detectives Kevin Gannon, Michael Donovan, Anthony Duarte, and Minnesota professor Dr. Lee Gilbertson believe the deaths are the work of a network of serial killers. Retired detective Kevin Gannon was working in missing persons when 20-year-old Patrick McNeil went missing on February 16th, 1997. He was out drinking at a bar on East 92nd Street. Patrick was found on April 7th, 1997, near the 69th Street Pier in Brooklyn. When Gannon retired, he enlisted an old partner, retired detective Anthony Duarte, to help him keep his promise to Patrick's parents that he would never give up searching for answers. They thought Patrick McNeil's death was similar to 22-year-old Lawrence Andrews. Lawrence went missing on December 31st, 2006, after drinking near Grand Central Terminal. He was found dead on February 12th, 2007, off the 69th Street Pier. He believed both young men were drugged with GHB and put in the water.
Well, if that's what he believed, and he thinks that's what could have happened, obviously those two would be linked.
At some of the sites where victims have been found, there was also smiley face graffiti. According to the New York Post, smiley faces, including some with horns, were scrawled on walls at 22 of the crime scenes in 5 states: Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Former detective Duarte told CNN that the symbols are taunting police. When the former detectives learned about the Midwest disappearances, they found that there were smiley faces drawn near the locations where some of the men were found. And, we talk a lot about, connecting cases. How do you connect them? Is it just a coincidence, or, were people killed or abducted by the same individuals? I think here, when you have the smiley faces, it's pretty hard not to think that at least those are connected.
Very difficult not to think they're connected. You almost have to say they have to be connected.
The following are a few more suspicious drowning incidents that many believe are connected to the smiley face killer. According to Oxygen, 21-year-old Brian Welsing was a student at Northern Illinois University. He went missing in Chicago after celebrating Y2K with his friends. He was found 77 days later on a beach in Gary, Indiana, 30 miles south of Chicago. There were no signs of foul play, and his death was ruled an undetermined drowning. Investigators believe he could have fallen into Lake Michigan, which was just a 5-minute walk from his hotel, but his autopsy found no water in his lungs and a low blood alcohol content. Brian could have legally driven a car. According to Oxygen, although the lake was close to the hotel, he would have had to cross multiple lanes of traffic and climb down a wall to get to the water.
So basically saying it'd be difficult for him to stumble into the water on his own, right?
Yeah, he would have had to have made an effort. That's what I'm taking from this, to actually even get down to the water. And Brian only had a few drinks, but according to his friends, he seemed drunk. Brian told his friends he wanted to go back to the hotel. During the drive back, he started vomiting. His friend told him to get out. While he parked, some witnesses saw Brian vomiting in the street. Brian's friends went to their hotel room and never saw him again. When a friend who had stayed behind at the party came back to the hotel around 4 a.m., he realized Brian wasn't in the room and looked around outside. He didn't find Brian. Police have not said if there was a smiley face near Brian's death site.
If his friend said he didn't really drink that much, maybe the reason he was getting sick was because he was poisoned with something.
Or slipped something into one of his drinks. Yeah. And maybe that's the reason why people thought he was acting drunk when he'd only had, a couple of drinks. 22-year-old Todd Gieb went missing on June 12, 2005, at a bonfire near Casnovia, Michigan. He made several calls that night. At one point, he called a friend and said, "I'm in a field." But the call dropped before he could give more details. Todd was found 3 weeks later in a lake that had already been searched. His death was ruled an undetermined drowning. Todd's remains were not very decomposed. Alcohol and antidepressants were found in his system, but it was not reported that he had depression. A smiley face was spray painted on a tree near the location where his body was found, and a smiley face sticker was placed later on his gravesite. Now, about these smiley faces, I go back to coincidence. It sure doesn't seem like it. But could somebody know about this link, this smiley face link? Could they later then put a sticker on the gravesite? We've seen, far too often where, people write letters or they do something to upset the family, to mess with them.
Yeah, just a game they're playing.
Yes. That part I could see. But to draw the smiley face on the tree, you would have to know where the body is.
Yeah, you have to have some knowledge.
So that can't be somebody playing around, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, I think the sticker on the gravesite, you can write that off to, it could be anybody. But where the body was found,
a little more suspicious.
Yes.
21-year-old Lucas Holman from La Crosse, Wisconsin, went missing after an Oktoberfest celebration on September 29th, 2006. Lucas went home with a friend around 10 p.m., but he and his friend got separated during the walk. His friend was picked up by the police and taken to the ER for a head injury. He couldn't remember anything that happened. Lucas didn't show up for golf the next day. A search dog hit on an SUV owned by a local band member in the downtown area where Lucas was last seen alive. This band member had played at the bar the night Lucas went missing. The hit was ruled inconclusive, and the police didn't implicate this band member in Lucas's death. Lucas was found on October 2nd near the shore of the Mississippi River. His death, too, was declared an accidental drowning. An orange spray-painted smiley face was found near the spot where investigators believe Lucas was abducted. Lucas had injuries on his head, hands, and arms. So, to me, this one is interesting because, obviously we have the smiley face.
Right.
But he was also with a friend who somehow, and I couldn't find the details around it, suffered this head injury that basically caused him to not be able to remember what happened the night before.
And I thought it was interesting that the dog hit on the SUV that a band member drove. So we have his friend that has a head injury. He's found, when the body's found, he's got injuries to his head, hands, and arms. Makes you wonder, is there any foul play there too? Maybe they used the smiley face killer to kind of throw police off.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. And that's one thing I think that you can't discount. It's not like this smiley killer face thing wasn't known about at a certain point in time.
Right.
So, if you had designs on committing a murder of a male of a certain age, could someone have the thought that they were going to paint the smiley face so that maybe police would think it was connected to these others, while really it was just a random, or maybe not random, but an isolated murder, and someone used the smiley face thing to their advantage. It's possible.
It's possible.
Oxygen reported that Lucas didn't like the water and reportedly told his parents he'd never go near the river. Additionally, his sweater allegedly had orange flecks on it. According to Oxygen, 24-year-old Tommy Booth went missing from a bar in Woodland, Pennsylvania on January 19th, 2008. Surveillance video captured him entering the bar, but not leaving. His body was found about 2 weeks later in a creek near the bar. This area had already been searched. A smiley face was painted on a wall of the bar under a deck. Tommy's death was declared a probable drowning. His body didn't have any signs of trauma. When he was found, his body was in full rigor mortis, which normally dissipates 24 to 36 hours after death, according to former detective Kevin Gannon and Dr. Lee Gilbertson. This does not align with the theory that Tommy drowned the night he disappeared. It was also reported that Tommy's last call started with the code 777, which wasn't a valid private number in North America. So, make of that what you will. Was he somehow drugged and out of it, trying to make a call, but just pressing numbers?
It's very possible. Heck, even when I'm sober, trying to dial a number, sometimes I can't. I just can't hit the number the right way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's just called old age. But
yeah, that's true.
According to Oxygen, 24-year-old William Hurley went missing on October 8th, 2009, after leaving a hockey game in Boston. He called his fiancée halfway through the game and said he wanted to leave. His fiancée drove to pick him up, but he wasn't outside. She called him to find out where he was. He answered the phone, and she heard him ask another person where he was. The man answered 99 Nashua Street. William told his fiancée his phone battery was dying. His fiancée drove to the address, but he wasn't there. She called again, but it seemed as though by that point his phone was dead. She drove around for an hour and then went home. She thought William most likely got another ride, but he was still gone when she got back. William was found in the Charles River 6 days later, near the area where he asked his fiancée to pick him up. His death was ruled an undetermined drowning. He suffered from blunt force trauma to the head, eye socket, and behind his left leg. GHB and alcohol were found in his system, and a smiley face was painted near the river.
Well, that one freaks me out.
Yeah, it does. I mean, number one, you got the smiley face connection. The other thing is this GHB. Is that what they used to call the date rape drug?
In his system. So they know.
And we've said it, at least 2 or 3 times about different individuals that they had this in their system. Finally, a more recent case is 23-year-old Dakota James, who went missing in Pittsburgh on January 25th, 2017. Around 11:30 p.m., he was walking back to his apartment after a night out, but he never made it home. A downtown surveillance camera captured him entering a dark alley. He was found in the Ohio River on March 6th. The police theorized that he fell into the river while crossing a bridge and drowned. They believed his body traveled almost 10 miles and passed through a dam, but his body had no visible damage. A smiley face was spray painted on an underpass near the location where James was found. So obviously the smiley face thing is a big deal.
It is.
Now, is there a possibility that a lot of people would spray paint a smiley face just for the fun of it, and that it just happened to be where some of these bodies were found? Is that possible, or is that too much of a coincidence?
I think anything can be possible, but I think it's too much of a coincidence.
So it's both.
It
is possible, but it also seems like too much of a coincidence.
Right.
Basically, I'm just trying to get you to say the word coincidence.
Coincidence?
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
According to CNN, the FBI issued a statement about the deaths in 2008. It said, to date, we have not developed any evidence to support links between these tragic deaths or any evidence substantiating the theory that these deaths are the work of a serial killer or killers. The vast majority of these instances appear to be alcohol-related drowning. So getting back to Josh Guimond, the most popular theory is that someone who knew Josh did something to him. According to investigator Andrew Struford, one of Josh's roommates told the police that he heard an argument between Josh and his friend Nick Hajdukovic earlier that evening. The argument involved Katie Benson. After Josh disappeared, there was speculation about whether or not Nick and Katie were together and if that could have been a motive for something. People wondered if Josh was upset about this. Katie told Unsolved Mysteries that she thought she and Nick had a level of attraction and they discussed dating, but they decided not to. Katie and Nick said in their police statements that they had talked about Nick wanting to date Katie. Nick also talked to investigators about what he did that evening because his statement differed from Katie's.
Significantly.
According to Unsolved Mysteries, Nick said he left Katie's around 2:30. His key card, however, shows that he entered his dorm at 2:42 a.m. on November 10th. Katie said Nick left at 1 or 1:30. The drive between the college campuses only took about 7 to 10 minutes.
It's a good gap of time, unaccounted for, if you believe Katie.
Yeah, at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Nick was asked to take a polygraph. He said he would consider it, but ultimately he chose not to take one. He told Unsolved Mysteries, I told them no because that's not going to do anybody any good. I don't want to be there to be some false positive because they're simply not reliable. There was a reason they're inadmissible in court.
Well, he's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong about that. You know, I don't know what role he played, if any, if he had anything to do with this, but he's definitely not wrong about the polygraph thing. Nick also said, I don't believe I was directly told that I was a suspect or person of interest. I had nothing to do with Josh's disappearance. And all I could think was, they're not going in the right direction because this is the one direction I can say with certainty is the wrong one. And that's a very interesting statement to me. And it's very true. If you're someone who the police is looking at,
yeah,
and you know for a fact you did nothing, then you know for a fact the police are barking up the wrong tree.
That's true.
And they should be looking somewhere else. Now, you can tell the police that may not work. I think especially when you have this discrepancy in what time Nick said he left and what time Katie said he left. That's a big deal to investigators. Something's not adding up.
Well, sure, yeah.
Doesn't mean he had anything to do with it. It's just something's not adding up.
There's a gap there and they got to figure out why.
Yeah. One possibility is that something happened at the party and the people in attendance didn't want anything to come out that would ruin their future in college or their future careers. But police have said they doubt that 10 to 12 people could keep something secret for 20 years.
Yeah, I kind of doubt it too. I mean, it could happen.
It could happen, but I think it's hard.
Yeah. It's a really tough thing to keep inside that long.
Because one of the things you'd have to say is that all 10 or 12 of these people would have had to have the same culpability.
Yeah.
And is that really reasonable to think?
I don't think so.
As opposed to 1 or 2 people doing something and the other 8 or 10 having seen it or something along those lines. Those 8 or 10 people are more likely to come forward.
For sure.
Because they're not going to jail.
No.
So why would their futures be ruined? Why would their future careers be ruined? I just can't imagine 10 or 12 people all participating at the same level in a murder.
And trying to cover it up.
And trying to cover it up. That doesn't seem all that plausible to me. After the initial search, the sheriff's office didn't take Josh's computer or hard drive because at the time, they didn't think the computer would have any relevant information. Brian allowed the police to access Josh's computer. They learned that someone used an internet washer on the computer several days after Josh went missing. The program could be installed from the internet and would allow files to be deleted temporarily or permanently from a computer's hard drive. And it was reported that this was the first time it had ever been done on Josh's computer.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, it really is, because you have to ask the question, why would someone do that? If there was nothing on that computer harmful to them.
Yeah, so what are you trying to hide?
Are you trying to hide his porn search history so that his parents don't know about it? I mean, I can't imagine that messing with this guy's computer who's missing, taking that chance just to kind of clear his computer up so that it doesn't look so bad to his family. I can't imagine someone taking the risk.
Yeah, unless they had
just to do that.
Unless they had something to do with his disappearance.
Right, and there was something else on there that was incriminating. Brian took all of Josh's belongings out of his room within 2 weeks of him being missing because the room wasn't closed off. Nick told Unsolved Mysteries he didn't do anything to Josh's computer because he thought it was important to leave it alone. In 2008, Stearns County Sheriff's Office Lieutenant Vic Weiss started looking at Josh's computer. He took the hard drive to the Bureau of Criminal Apprehensions lab. They learned that the internet washer didn't delete all the data on the computer. They looked at Josh's activity on Yahoo Personals. They found 3 profiles used by Josh. One of the profiles had part of his name and the zip code for the area where he lived. 2 other profiles portrayed him as a female. So, I mean, I think the theory that they developed was that Josh was chatting with men and pretending to be a woman.
And we know that's pretty popular out there, the catfishing world and things like that.
Yeah, I don't know how popular it is, but I know it happens. Lieutenant Weiss told Unsolved Mysteries that Josh might have been exploring his sexuality. No one they spoke to had any belief that Josh was gay. One theory is that Josh met someone online and decided to meet them in person, and that perhaps something happened to him during that meeting. According to Unsolved Mysteries, the police looked into all of the St. John's life safety incident reports for alerts from the time when Josh went missing. There were 2 of them. In both instances, life safety services saw a vehicle in different locations on campus on 2 nights in 2002, before Josh went missing. According to Lieutenant Weiss, there are some dark remote areas on the outskirts of campus that are used for meetings or hookups, and the car was seen in those kind of areas. The incident report stated that when campus security drove up to the vehicle, a college-aged male got out of the passenger side and ran off. In the first report, there was not much in the way of a physical description. In the second report, they spoke to another young man who was in the front passenger seat. The passenger in the front passenger seat was not identified in either case. The vehicle was described as an orange Pontiac Sunfire. Campus security had a license plate number and had also stopped and spoken with the driver. He said he was dropping off a student on campus. The sheriff's office talked to this individual who gave the same story. The vehicle has been crushed, so police cannot search it for evidence.
Conveniently or not.
Well, and you just don't know. When was it crushed? Was it so old that crushing it doesn't seem strange? Or was it crushed weeks after this incident, which maybe would be a little more strange?
That'd be an alarm going off.
Yeah. Lieutenant Weiss told Unsolved Mysteries, I do think that Joshua's computer activity, and specifically being on Yahoo Personals, might have contributed to his disappearance. It seems probable. He was on a dating site or trying to meet people, and I think it's probably our most likely avenue or theory. When the police looked at his hard drive, they found some images that were directly linked to Josh's Yahoo Personal site. None of them matched the individual in the car. According to KARE 11, It's possible that Josh got into a car with someone on the bridge. There was no evidence of a struggle on the bridge, according to Sheriff Soika. I guess a person would be safe to assume that a college-age male is going to struggle if somebody is trying to get them into a car against their will. So it obviously opens up a theory that he knew that someone and was voluntarily going with them. But everything's on the table for us. If Josh was chatting with men online, this could explain why he didn't tell anyone where he was going. Lieutenant Vic Weiss said on Unsolved Mysteries, the examination of Joshua's computer leads me to believe he might have had some secrets he didn't want to share with people. And I often think that's the case with a lot of people.
Sure it is.
You know, people have secrets, things that they don't want other people to know. Now, I think if you kind of analyze this theory, I could see how possibly it could have had something to do with his disappearance. You know, let's just say for a second that he was pretending to be a female online, chatting with a male. They decide to meet. This person obviously finds out that he was being catfished. He wasn't talking to a female, gets angry, does something.
Things go wrong quickly.
Things go bad quickly, and Josh ends up dead. Now, I have no idea if that's what happened. Nobody does, though.
But it could have.
But I'm just throwing out
it's a possibility.
theories. Or it could be that he met a man who knew he was a man.
Yeah.
And things went wrong. It could have happened that way, too.
Could have.
Leading up to the 20th anniversary of Josh's disappearance, the Stearns County Sheriff's Office released new information in the case and a set of pictures found on Josh's computer. Sheriff Steve Soika announced that they were seeking the public's help in identifying the men in the photos, hoping that one of them may know what happened to Josh. There are 28 photos of different men. Some of them are young, some of them are older. Investigators don't know why Josh had these photos on his computer. Okay, I get why they would enlist the help of the public. I'd feel really bad for some of these individuals.
Oh, of course, yeah. They're out there.
Once identified, if they had nothing at all to do with the disappearance of Josh Guimond, because let's face it, they're going to face some type of scrutiny.
Yeah, people are going to see their picture and ask, why did he have your picture?
Did you have something to do with this?
Right.
You know, are some of these people going to have those clouds of suspicion hanging over their heads?
And you can see these pictures out on the internet.
Yeah.
They're plain as day.
Yeah. I don't know what else police can do, right? If you had nothing to do with it, you had nothing to do with it. But could you still get hurt in some way in the process? And I would say yes, potentially. Yeah. That could happen.
Maybe your loved one says, honey, I don't understand why your picture is out there like that.
Yeah, maybe some of these older men were married. Maybe. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. But I do appreciate the fact that, you know, police are still on this. I mean, they are, you know, releasing these photos. They're still trying to figure out what happened to Josh Guimond.
Yeah, I mean.
And you have to applaud him for that.
You do.
Whether you agree with the tactic or not.
It's definitely generated tips.
Yeah, I'm sure it has.
Yeah.
I'm sure it has. In October of 2022, the sheriff's office participated in the Unsolved Mysteries episode, hoping to spark new interest and generate new leads. And it seemed like this worked. Sheriff Soika announced that they had received numerous tips since the release of the episode and the photos. Never a bad thing to have a case profiled on Unsolved Mysteries or, you know, any of those big shows.
Yeah.
That a lot of people watch. You're getting a lot of eyeballs on there.
I mean, you're going to probably get a lot of tips that really aren't worth anything, but you got to go through all those tips to get to the nugget, right?
Yeah, you got to take all of them. You got to take the good with the bad. Yeah. You got to weed through them. If you're afraid of doing that, you're not going to get anything.
Right.
It's been 20 years since Josh disappeared. No one has seen or heard from him since. If you have any information about Josh Guimond's disappearance or the men in the photos, you can contact the Stearns County Sheriff's Office Investigations Department at 320-259-3700, or you can submit a tip on their website. So Gibbs, as we wrap up this case, we talked about a lot of different things.
You did.
I mean, obviously we're focused on the disappearance of Josh Guimond, but there were a couple of other disappearances of men about his age that happened not far from him. You've got the whole smiley face killer aspect to kind of wade through. Now, as far as I know, there were no smiley faces found near the first three that we talked about. I don't know that there's any connection whatsoever, but.
And his body was never found. I think that's part of the smiley face theory is typically the body is found.
Because they want it found near where the smiley face has been drawn.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get that. I'm still trying to digest this possibility of a network of serial killers. I can't get that out of my mind.
I know. It's a scary thought.
But these types of cases are baffling because, what's connected? What has nothing to do with the case at all? Who's connected? Why do Katie and Nick have differing accounts of when Nick left? I'm not putting anything on Nick at all. I'm just saying these all add up to questions that are yet to have been answered.
It definitely make you think.
Yeah. I mean, this is a case that will make you think, and, how real is this smiley case killer thing?
Right.
How far does it extend? At some point, I do think it's real, but how many of them
are associated with it?
Are associated with whoever is actually doing the smiley face killings? How many people have used that as a kind of a cover up to commit a murder that they already wanted to commit?
Right. Could be some copycats too.
There could be. There could be. But that's it for our episode on the unsolved disappearance of Josh Guimond. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hey, guys. I love both of you. My name's Christopher Barnett. I'm from Mississippi. We've talked before, but I'd really like y'all to look into the Jimmy Snuka, old wrestler, and maybe the Chandra May disappearance from Forest, Mississippi back in the 80s. I think y'all might get some more info than anybody else would, and maybe renew the case. Anyway, I love both you guys. Talk to y'all later. I'm a Patreon subscriber. All right, bye.
All right. Well, thanks for helping us on Patreon. We really appreciate that. And we'll definitely put both of those down. Are you telling me Jimmy Snuka is missing?
I don't
or
know.
is an unsolved case?
Jimmy the Fly Snuka?
Is it Superfly?
Superfly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I'm going to have to look that up immediately.
Yeah, I didn't know about it.
I did not know about it either. So we'll have to research that one for sure.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Candace Work over here in New Mexico. I just listened to the Brasher Dye disappearances, and wow, that was a great show. You guys did a great job on that. And, I know there's a lot of people who don't like to listen to the unsolved cases, but ones like this where there's just so many possibilities and there's people coming forward with either stupid or real tips and stuff like that, it makes it really interesting to listen to. And you guys do a really great job in presenting that information. And now off the subject a little bit of that, Gibby, it is so wonderful to hear you talking more. I've been listening for a little over a year now. I've listened to all the episodes, and you've come so far in your talking. You talk more, and you dive into a little bit of the case, and it's nice to hear. So right now, I'm Team Gibby. Keep it up, and stay safe, and keep your own time ticking. Bye-bye.
Oh, wow. Thanks for the voicemail. Thanks
That's
for
awesome.
the kudos. And I will echo those sentiments. It's nice to hear you talking more.
Yeah.
Life's kind of kicked you in the face a few times over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I get it, man. Things have been tough at certain times.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy to come in here and be Gibby.
Yep. Difficult sometimes
when you're dealing with some of those issues. But you've had a pretty good stretch, except for the recent COVID.
Yeah.
That one wasn't too bad.
Nah,
that one didn't hit you too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, people love it when you're talking more, and you really are.
Yeah.
Lately. And so I think it's appreciated by everyone.
I definitely appreciate the comment.
All right, buddy, that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
All month long on Pluto TV, stream the biggest Tyler Perry movies free. Watch your favorites like Medea's Witness Protection and Medea's Big Happy Family. Join Tyler Perry as he goes on a couples retreat with Sharon Leal in Why Did I Get Married? Or Idris Elba and Gabrielle Union in the Tyler Perry directed film Daddy's Little Girls. Plus, Pluto TV has hundreds of channels with thousands more movies and TV shows. Available on live and on demand. Download the free Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming now. Pluto TV. Drop in, watch free.
How much is an hour of your time worth? Whether you're a realtor, lawyer, accountant, or even a content creator, Stamps.com gives you the ability to focus your time on what you do best, not on tedious mailing and shipping tasks. Print stamps, shipping labels, or certified mail forms in seconds. More than 4 million customers have relied on Stamps.com to make their lives easier. Go to Stamps.com/audio for a special offer. No contract, cancel anytime. That's Stamps.com/audio.